created murder. I'm having a hard time even putting my words around it because it's so hard to talk about when people create murder together. I'm going to start with Chris Watts, and I'm going to share with you how I believe that Chris Watts' upbringing and the compartmentalization that occurred during his upbringing is what made him who he was, therefore capable of murder. And also I will share with you what NK brought to the table to create the mixture that caused and helped promote this disastrous, diabolical result. How did Shanaean, baby Nico, Bella, and Cece end up the way they were in Survey 319? How did they get there? And why did they get there? So I will start with Chris's background. We all have heard from Chris in the last interview at the prison that he has never emoted, that he has never had feelings towards anything that he shows. So therefore, he has compartmentalized, put feelings in a special area. And each one of those feelings are in a different, let's call it a container, a box. So most people, when they're growing up, they grow up learning how to integrate feelings into living. You stub your toe, you feel pain, and you might shout out something in anger. Why was that chair there? If that chair wasn't there, I went to stub my toe. And then when the pain subsides, then you realize, well, the chair really didn't cause it. I stubbed my toe, I got the pain, and I could only blame what was in front of me. Well, with Chris Watts, he compartmentalized all pain, whether it was physical, emotional, psychological, whatever kind of pains that he experienced in his life were put in a box. Now, most people, those boxes are within themselves. And we have many boxes. Let's say one box is the fun box, where you smile and you laugh and you giggle and you feel elated. That feeling, that emotion, elation, is put into a box. So we know when we see something that delights us, we emote that feeling, happiness. Well, with Chris Watts, all of his emotions and feelings were compartmentalized. But with regular people that have developmental milestones that they surpass, they integrate their emotions and they integrate their feelings and they integrate everything about them gets integrated so that it doesn't prominently stand out. Like fun doesn't prominently stand out. When you're having fun, you recognize that's not what life is all about, is feeling elated. We know that. But with someone like with Chris Watts, let's use the word elated. He's feeling elated. When does he feel elated? Well, we know by the history, in the evidence, in the discovery, in the videos, in the audio tapes that we listen to, we understand that he was having a lot of sex. And to him, he was elated with that. So that was one box. So we're going to put that box aside. Chris Watts' elation. Chris Watts is elated. And when he's elated, it's about having sex. Most people, when they grow up, they have all these boxes within them. And they have sadness, and they have happiness, and they have sort of a cognitive box where it's a thinking box. It's a kind of a creative Einstein box that we're really trying to figure things out. Well, with Chris Watts coming from a family, as he apparently did, with Cindy Watts as a mom, I can see that she prevented him to take those compartments, those containers that had the different emotions. She prevented him from going there. Nope, you can't go there. No, Chris, being sad isn't allowed. No, Chris, being overly excited about something isn't accepted. No, Chris, having an off day isn't allowed. So he got messages from Cindy how to act, how to perform. From Ronnie, it is very apparent that he got to learn that emotions and feelings are not to be seen. They are not to be heard. They are not to be brought into daily life. If there is troubles, we avoid them. So we got the avoidance from Ronnie, and we got the kind of do not disturb from Cindy. She knew these existed, but don't disturb her with them. So he got left out, holding all his boxes of feelings, his whole childhood, outside of himself, while other kids were out playing and stubbing their toes and getting into arguments with their peers and feeling resentful to their parents and peers and family members, siblings. Chris Watts wasn't doing that. All of those boxes that everyone else has inside were held far away from him, outside of his psyche, out of his body. They were far away. He could see them, and he could call upon them when needed, because he would mimic, oh, this is when someone acts this way. So he would call upon a box, and he would mimic what he had known to be true in that particular box. Well, when you grow up fragmented, as I'm trying to explain, that your feelings are outside yourself. They're not internal. They're not internal. They're all in your head, and there's something you look at from afar. That's how Chris Watts was brought up, to look at everything from afar. They will not touch your spirit. They will not burden you. Life is not going to be a burden, because you're going to soar. You're going to do good in sports. You're going to do well in school. You're going to do well in all areas. That anything social or anything that needs emotion and feelings to integrate you into being able to socialize in a very fluid way is going to be cast aside by Cindy. She was not going to allow her child to feel. And Ronnie made it very clear that not only do you not feel and keep feelings at bay, all emotions are somewhere else in life. He made it very clear that you don't even talk about them, that you don't even broach the area of how do these feelings develop into wholeness. There was no such thing as wholeness. They were separated people. I am only going to surmise, and it is just a pure guess, that something very bad, very much abuse, was the leader in their family tree. Somehow in Cindy and Ronnie Watts's past, whether it was on Cindy's or on Ronnie's or both, somehow some abuse came forward that had never been dealt with, or there was actual abuse right in Chris's childhood. We know there was neglect because obviously Cindy and Ronnie did not bring up a child that was well integrated. He never learned to be social, and they never got him help for that. They recognized it, or at least Cindy admitted to it. But with that, it's like, oh, okay, I see that you have a growth on your arm. I don't know if it's cancerous. I'll go and take you to the doctors and see what that growth is. Well, with Chris's social awkwardness, they never took him to the doctor to see what that awkwardness was. It wasn't a valuable, or it wasn't something that troubled them. They did not put any credence on people being well integrated with other people. That wasn't important to them. So they let Chris falter. He was that wallflower that they created because they never dealt with it. And in hindsight, Cindy might say to herself or Ronnie, geez, what if I had gotten Chris help when he was young? We don't know if the abuse came down the family tree from other people in his life, grandparents, cousins, somewhere there was extreme abuse. What this situation reminds me of 100% is sexual abuse. And my thinking from day one, it feels like someone had been seriously sexually abused in the family, where they shut down all emotions and they do compartmentalize all their feelings outside of themselves. When you've been abused so badly, you want that feeling to stay distant. So you compartmentalize it, you put it in the container. Sadness gets put into a container and gets put aside. Loneliness gets put into a container, and all the emotions, all the happiness, feeling glee gets put in the container. It's not just the bad ones or the ones that we don't like to have that often in a day, but we all know we do. We get mad when the old lady cuts you in front of a line at the grocery store. You've been standing there for 10 minutes and some old lady comes along and barges in and pushes your cart and pretends she doesn't see you. Now she's before you. That makes people mad. But with the Wattses, instead of addressing and saying, "Excuse me, ma'am, but I've been standing here for 10 minutes and I don't know why you're in front of me now, but you need to get behind me." Instead of being outright about anger, because that's addressing anger, because you would feel angry, you would feel slighted in that situation. With Chris, he'd take that anger and put it in the box and put it on the side. No anger existed. So he's still standing in that line. The lady has come, rammed her carriage into his carriage, and he's still standing there. She's still in front of him, but he's taken that anger and stuffed it in that box, that container, and put it outside himself. This happens, what I'm explaining about compartmentalizing feelings and emotions and parts of your life get compartmentalized. It's not like having a split personality. It's split parts of your life. Like you split off different emotions and you put them in different containers. It's not like having a complete different personality, which would all have their complete emotions and feelings attached to those personalities. No, it's not that at all. It's just compartmentalizing every little aspect of your life, and they're outside of your body. They're not integrated in yourself. They're not mixed. They're not going fluid so that you come out with a result. Usually when you're thinking out a situation, you work it until you come out with a result. And that would be Chris standing there and saying, "Oh, she's old. She probably doesn't understand what she's doing. I'll just let her stay." Or he does what I said he becomes very proactive and tells her that he's been standing there and he's in a hurry and he needs to get home, and asks her to go behind him. This is when people have integrated their behaviors, their thoughts, and their actions. Well, with people like Chris, who I believe severe abuse permeated throughout his family, they don't act like that. They box everything up. If you ask them a question about a feeling or about a behavior, they look at you with that 1,000-mile stare because they have gone right to the box, but their box is locked. And you're asking them for an impromptu answer. They're not going to be able to come up with it because they need to take that box, unlock it, put it in themselves, and mull over it for maybe 8 days, who knows, a year, before they can answer what someone else can answer impromptu. Just spill it right out. Yeah, I was angry at the lady. I told her to go stand behind me. So what I am inferring and what I believe is that Chris grew up in a cesspool. His sister Jamie was 7 years away from him, older than him, therefore wasn't available for him to help nurture him if she had the capability at that age or throughout her years to help him, because certainly Ronnie and Cindy did not. So now we look at Jamie. And because of the age difference, she just probably didn't have it in her to want to parent and to bring to life a guy, a kid, a boy who was growing up compartmentalized, if she even knew what was going on. Most of these people that live in these families have no insight. They don't want to have any insight. And they have no intuition of what would make something right or make a bad good. They don't know how to go from a bad circumstance and make it good. That's why they have the boxes. The boxes sit there and divides everything. Nothing touches. It's like everything has cooties. Don't let these feelings touch these feelings. So to go on with Chris's child life, he had developmental milestones that he had to reach at certain ages. And I won't go into those milestones, but we all go through them. And some are latent, some are progressive, and reach them much quicker. In Chris's case, I believe he didn't reach any milestones. He developmentally was delayed growing right into adulthood. In other words, he grew up physically, intellectually, but came into adulthood as a grown man without going through those childhood milestones. Why? Did cognitively he didn't have the capability? Like, is there something wrong with his brain and it malfunctions and doesn't let him go down certain pathways that are designed in other people? Or was it the abuses in his family so significant, as I've been talking about, that didn't allow him to develop into those milestones? It seems like socially he never had any social stability. And I've seen it before when people cannot socialize and when everything they're thinking is deeply hidden, it can be very scary for the people around them. Because you're thinking, oh, their behavior, oh, Chris is playing with Cece and Bella on the floor. But is he really playing with them, or is he mimicking what he thinks Shanann or others want to see? It's part of that, part of being compartmentalized, or part of having no ability to integrate the parts of him. He is a person with many different parts that have no pathways to each other. And he will protect that. He puts guards at each container so that one container can't navigate to the other. And that's done to keep him safe. He's learned that because that's what abused children and abused people do. They learn to keep their parts safe. They don't integrate them. They can't. But if they keep each part of them so separate and so bona fide with protections, whether those protections are good or bad, they're protections. And he does that. So here we got a grown man that never went through any of the developmental stages that's necessary to be a grown man. He's never explored his anger. He's probably never yelled at his mother and father and told them they were AHs. He probably never disrespected anyone. He probably never freshed the teacher. But what he probably did do, what these kids will do, probably pinch someone younger than them. Maybe he had a playmate at his house, and behind, when the doors were closed, he'd whack them or pinch them or do things like that. So his anger would have released in a small, violent way. He's one of these kids that the parent says, oh my God, I never had any trouble with them. They were delightful. They never mouthed me. They never caused any friction in society. They went smoothly right through all the programs. I never got a phone call. The police never came. None of that stuff. But all along, that kid is pinching his peer or the younger kid. Or maybe he purposely sets up a booby trap, whether it's an emotional booby trap or whether it's a physical booby trap. He sets up a booby trap for someone to fall into. So he learns how to be destructive, but no one sees it and no one cares to see it to pull him out of it. No one leads him away from it because most likely it's so well hidden, because being bad isn't allowed in this family. Usually families with extreme abuses permeating within the family's framework does not allow bad to be seen or to be heard. So how does a kid grow up in a family that doesn't allow him? Because a kid has to be bad to learn how to be right. You can't learn what goodness is if you don't know what bad is. So if your parents is never telling you, oh, you shouldn't do that, oh, that's wrong, then you go along secretly holding your bad. And that's why they say people who are narcissists live in shame. Because intellectually they know that bad is bad. The difference is they can't emotionalize it. They can't tell someone, oh, I really feel this because of, I shouldn't have done this. And they can't go there. So everything they do wrong is just pursed right into the old container that's shame. So everything gets shame-based. So here we got Chris, a grown man. He pursues Shanann, rightfully so. Up and mobile woman, beautiful woman that has a strong character. You can see her character from a million miles away. People attract to that character. She's a magnet. She's not just a salesperson. She is magnetic. She's one of those people that walk in the room and both males and females are drawn to her because she has an energy. We've all have seen it. It is clear as a bell that she was one in a million. And that's why all people that watch her videos and that hear about it via her parents and her brother and friends know that Shanann was one in a million. So he meets the one in a million girl. She's got everything he doesn't have. She has bounce in her step. She has a tongue that can, just keep everyone listening. She has motivation. She has desire. She has all of the gifts that he doesn't have. He's mechanical. He just thuds through life. He gets up. He brushes his teeth. He gets his cup of coffee. He gets his carrot sticks, packs his lunch. He performs mechanically. There's no bounce in his step. If there was, everything would be integrated in him. All his boxes are separate. All his containers are outside of himself. So he would have had to have a bounce in his step. He would have had to take all of those containers, brought them in, and integrated them by a lot of work, which obviously he did not do. And obviously his family in his younger days did not help him do. They didn't get him the right help to get rid of the social awkwardness. There are many behavioral modification programs that can help people integrate enough that they can become more socially fluid. Obviously, Cindy and Ronnie, again, did not deem that important enough for Chris. They liked the idea that he kept his mouth shut, that he kept his feelings closed, that he just was perfunctory, where he just did things each day over and over, robotically, methodically. He was just a Stepford son. So he grows up, he marries Shanann, he pursues her to the hilt. He does everything that someone with his personality does. He married her. He did everything she wanted. He studied what she wanted, and he gave it to her. Now, some of you might call that puppy love or juvenile love. But when you're a man 25 and older, it has to develop into integrated love. So he has this marriage, he has his children, and the pinnacle, the thing that caused everything to blow up, happened around June 12th, 2018, when he received the Anadarko email from NK. They had been dallying around in the halls talking, and they had been doing light flirting, but nothing had come of it as yet. But on June 12th, she gave him the contractual deal. In that email, on that Anadarko site, she stated, "I want what you have. What you have done with your beautiful wife and your two cute little girls." And at the very end, she makes the contract. And I keep all our communications private. That's the contract. Now, he responds later that same day, June 12th, 2018, with, "I can do it, NK. I can keep our communications private. No problem. You got me. You got me, baby. I am yours. He, in that response to her, signed the contract that she had developed. They were going to have a relationship if and only if they kept it private. Those were her terms. Now we can research why she might have wanted that relation private, but I think we all know the answer because she knew it was wrong. And also, more importantly, she knew that if Shanann did not find out via co-workers of Chris's or anyone else, that she would have the upper hand. And she was experienced having the upper hand. So let's go back to it. We have an undeveloped man, a man that takes everything and keeps it separate in little boxes. Now he is asked to create another box. And on the box, it's titled NK, My Secret. Very easily done for him. Very easy. He was taught that in childhood, and he has brought it forward into his adulthood. They go on. You know the end results. Not even 2 months later, the whole family is murdered. Shanann, Nico, Bella, and Cece. Taken out by Chris's own hands. Why did such a diabolical thing have to happen? Like murder to an entire family. I am going to try to explain that this potion, this NK and Chris Watts potion, was the most dangerous potion in the world. Is for anyone. It's not just about Chris Watts and NK. It's about anyone that has the background of both of them. It is very clear that NK was striving to have Shanann's life. She indicated that in that letter, in that email of June 12, 2018. She said, I want the same thing that you have built with your beautiful wife and your 2 cute little children. So how does she get that with Chris? He's already done it. He has it. He's living it. Yes, he's living it, but he's compartmentalized. So really, is he living it? Nope. He's playing it. He's doing what he thinks is right. Because remember, he doesn't have a bad box. That bad box is isolated. The dark, dangerous box is somewhere else. He never got to navigate his dark sides as a developing child. So here he is. He's got Shanann, who is this vivacious, beautiful soul. And then he's got NK, who's a little on the dark side, who is more than controlling, who is really outrageously bossy. we see it in the interviews. She was bossing everybody and she was trying to control the world. You can tell that limits weren't something that had ever stopped her in her life. She always went over the line, and we saw it in the interviews that she crossed every line that was put before her. She had no respect for the authorities, and she had no respect for Chris's family. Why do I say that? Because you never hear her divulge in any of her iterations how sad, how disastrous the culmination of those two, how it resulted in what it resulted in, how their union, NK and Chris Watts' union, created the box, the big dark box that Chris never has opened. He never got to explore those things. That's why he is stunted as an adult. And he will never explore them, because in prison he won't have the right relationships, the flow, the ebb and flow of relationships. They're gone. He's in his right place. He's in his perfect place for him, a place that he can remain who he is, compartmentalized. But with Nicole, with NK, she was thirsty for something. She was trying to quench something. But she didn't want it with someone that was available. That's why she put that perimeter on him in the letter, saying our communications will be private. Right, Chris? And he wrote back, yes, you can depend on me. I'm your boy for secrets. So that NK box. So that Shanann and him from the 22nd of June, that's 10 days after she wrote the contractual letter between her and Chris. So 22 of June to the 26th of June, they went to San Diego on a business trip. Shanann and him came back on the 26th. Shanann left with the girls on the 27th for that 5-week vacation / business trip to North Carolina. That is when NK knew she had to move in swift. She had to strike while it was hot. And she did. You heard in his interview at the prison that that's all she wanted was sex. That's all she wanted. Couldn't believe it. Well, what was the goal with that? Was she some kind of sex-crazed woman? Or was she trying to tantalize him away from his wife? Was she given this the guy that's got all these compartments, another compartment, the dirty sex, the kinky sex, the dangerous sex, the sordid sex. All of those went in one of those containers. Boy, was he in his brain lucky that he finally could just have this hedonistic session. The session happened to last a month. But then he had to leave for North Carolina. And that whole time they were in North Carolina, what was NK doing? We don't know how pornographic the pictures that she was sending him while he was in North Carolina were. We don't know if they were simple poses, semi-nude, nude, or were they actual pornographic content, illicit. Was she actually pleasuring herself and doing things in these pictures that would have made a very disturbed mind more disturbed, more fascinated with that box, that NK, kinky, dangerous sex box. So I would rather say at this point that I am lucky that I have had some trainings and some background positions and some other situations that have allowed me to see and be close to exactly what I'm talking about. Nothing that I have shared thus far has been something that hasn't been documented somewhere for people who have compartmentalized lives. So we got Nicole over here saying, look at me, Chris, look at me, look at what I'll give you. And she did it visually. She gave him those visual messages. She didn't have to say it. She pounced on him. And he's over there, and as you heard in his interview, he said, I couldn't see my family. I didn't even know I was a father. I couldn't even think of it. Was I a father? Well, of course he wasn't a father. He was mimicking what a father does, because that's what people that compartmentalize do. They mimic. They mimic. They can only feel when it's something about themselves. They can't feel for someone else. So if someone's crying because they just lost their parent, they can't feel, have that empathy. Empathy doesn't come up in them. They know why the person is crying because they intellectualize that. They go, oh, she's crying. She just lost her dad. But they can't feel the empathy that most people feel for others when there's stuff going on that isn't good, happy, that isn't good. So we got Chris Watts over here. He's in North Carolina. She's pouncing on him, saying, look at me, don't forget about me, look at these nasty pictures. Whoa, look at how kinky I can be, blah, 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 blah. He comes home. Shanann takes off Friday morning of the 11th to go to a conference in Arizona. Or it was actually the 10th, the morning of August 10th, 2018. She went to the conference. And then he spends more time with NK. That night, when Shanann was returning from that conference, the night of August 12th, but she didn't end up getting there until wee hours of the morning on August 13th, NK and him were on the phone. She, quite coincidentally, can't remember anything they talked about in those telephone sessions. Also, they FaceTimed in that time. What were they doing and what were they saying? I would surmise she was giving him ultimatums. If you don't leave Shanann, like instantly, then I'm gone. And he's looking at the sex box. He's looking at that compartment. It's labeled kinky, dangerous, sordid, all the time, on demand. And he's going, oh my God, I'm going to lose that. I've never had that in my life before. I'm still a little boy. It's like being in a candy store, and I'm going to lose that. I feel that NK pushed him. I don't know. That's for law enforcement to figure out whether she actually mouthed the words, but she somehow subliminally let him know that if he didn't act quick and that if he didn't act exacting, that she was gone. So that is why I think we as a country and even worldwide have such anguish in regards to NK. And for me personally, dealing with people with Chris Watts' background, I can see how this made the diabolical circumstance of murder. It was laid out like a well-oiled machine. He was the machine, and she was the combustion. And for my first video, I'd like to say thank you. Or like. I just want to share my feelings and what I have to offer, that this was someone sexually entranced. The other phrase we can call it is sexual addiction, but people really don't understand sexual addiction. So I'm going to say sexually entranced person. Just like heroin makes people go after heroin, sexually addicted people go after sex. And so that's why we got to listen to and find ways to help people understand the lore of bad sex. It's not a good place. Thank you very much.